It will mean a great deal to the businessmen and to the people, investors in this area, simply because it will enlighten them the opportunities in Africa. It will create a trade link between Africa and this region. And as this region, as one of the dynamic regions here, we have set up because we feel that Texas have a lot to offer to Africa, and Africa has a lot to offer to Texans.
So in other words, you're setting up primarily the channels for trade, distributing information.
Yeah, we are setting up a channel to enlighten the businessmen the things they are missing. Already, Bear Helicopter is already dealing with Africa, as they sell over 125 helicopters last year to Africans. And I feel that other businessmen in this area can take opportunities, as Africa is a big continent and has a lot to develop, and we need a lot of expertise, and we feel that you have an expertise and you need people to work with.
Jim, I don't think pessimistic is a word to use. I think they're still very optimistic about our nation. I think more the word that we'd need to be use here would be confusion. I don't think they understand phase 2 yet.
The customer that comes to your bank and the other banks in this city, are they borrowing money or are they just talking about it?
Yes, they are borrowing money. They're borrowing money for special needs, however. I don't see them borrowing money for luxuries or vacations or what have you.
What about automobiles? Things
yes,
like that?
Automobiles are at a real nice sales rate, both in Dallas County and in the United States.
Now, aside from automobiles, what else is the local consumer spending money for?
I'd say mobile homes right now in the state of Texas. We're seeing about 1 out of every 4 houses sold in the United States being a mobile home. And Texas is a real prospective state for a mobile home salesman right now.
Of course, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, Mr. Stewart, we're blessed with a pretty good unemployment figure of 3.2%. But we're also losing a great deal of money from the outside in government contracts and other monetary losses. Is there an adequate money supply internally to keep our local economy going?
There is for the consumer. There's no shortage of money at this time for the consumer's purposes. He probably has as healthy a situation from the supply of money standpoint as he's ever had in his life.
If the president manages to get control of interest ceilings in the United States, what effect, if any, will that have on Dallas area banks?
I doubt that it will do very little from the consumer standpoint, and that's honestly all I can speak from as far as our bank's concerned. Because right now, for instance, an automobile rate is less than we were charging in 1942, the pre-war years. The consumer is borrowing money at a lesser rate or a lesser cost to him than he was borrowing back before World War II.
Only about 100 delegates showed up for today's second session of the National Coalition Convention being held at the State Fairgrounds here in Dallas. The 100 who did show were quite divided on, one, whether or not they should, for instance, nominate a presidential and vice presidential candidate. There are about 25 various parties present, and if there is to be a coalition, they must decide on a party name. There are a number of questions being discussed. What would be the function of a national party organization? What kind of membership shall the party organization have, by individuals or local party? And, of course, what should that name be? The New Party and the Peace and Freedom Party are two of the most prominent names present. One of the founders, or one of the honorary co-chairmen of the New Party, is Gore Vidal. He visited today on News 8 at noon, and I asked him who he would like to see this group nominate as its presidential candidate. Well, Mr. Vidal says he won't be this party's presidential nominee, but somebody has to if they're going to put names on the ballot. Some of those names being mentioned are Nicholas Johnson of the FCC. Mr. Vidal says, however, he's not a good bet. Neither is New York Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. He said privately before that interview today that she would frankly lose every black male vote in the country. Mr. Vidal could possibly accept a draft, but the best bet, at least this afternoon, is Dr. Benjamin Spock, who incidentally told me just a few minutes ago that he is tired of the free enterprise system. On the State Fairgrounds, this is Jim Mitchell, Channel 8 News on the Move.
Very recently, our own national board in session in Chicago noted with great interest the developments here in Fort Worth and have indicated this as a target zone where many of us representing different cities around the country will be coming in support of the local groups who have launched this very important citywide boycott against local businesses.
It's the National League of Cities annual meeting in the Hawaiian Islands. 8 Dallas councilmen, including Mayor Wes Wise, and 5 Fort Worth councilmen, including Mayor Sharkey Stovall, will be in attendance. The Dallas contingent left this afternoon from Love Field. Mayor Wise told me that this is the most important meeting of the year. He said councilmen and mayors from throughout the nation will gather to formulate the official city policy, which will be in turn fed to Congress to outline their official position on major topics. Wise said he is on the Environment Committee. Councilman George Allen is a member of the Transportation Policy Council. The councilmen have their trip paid for by the city, but they pick up the tabs for their families. Wise said he felt it would be a detriment to Dallas if they were not represented the first year they received the All-America City designation. They will return to Dallas next week. Jerry Park, Channel 8 News on the Move at Love Field.
There it is. First set, Ken Rosewall, 6 games to 4. Labor is now serving in the second set. He broke Rosewall's service in the 4th and 6th game. It is advantage Labor. Fault. Second serve. Game, Labor, set, Labor. The match is now tied at 1 set apiece. Rod Labor is serving. He's just hit Ken Rosewall in the eye on a fine serve. Bounced off Rosewall's racket into the ground and came up and evidently struck him in the right eye, and there will be a time now. Rosewall is leading 6-5. Labor is now serving. He trails 3-6. It is out. Ken Rosewall wins the second set, winning the tiebreaker. 7-3. 7 games to 6. We are in the tiebreaker of the 4th set. Ken Rosewall leading 2 sets to 1 and 6-4 in the tiebreaker. He is serving. The World Championship of Tennis belongs to Ken Rosewall. Ken, how did you feel you played today?
Well, I played as well as I had to, of course. I was really pretty happy the way I played. Playing Labor, you really never know what to expect from Rod. As you can see, I had a chance there in that 4th set, 5-4 and serving, and I didn't really play such a bad game. It's just that he hit, so many winners. I got him back to 5-all, and that's something that you expect him to do, or you kind of hope that he won't, knowing that he will somewhere along the line, somewhere along the match. But I played pretty well throughout. I kind of stuck at it. I thought I might have been gone there at one stage, but I was happy to keep in it, and I felt that if I keep going along those, the way I was playing, I felt that I'd have a pretty good chance, even in the tiebreaker, which happened because Ron Bookman of WCT, he's the one with all the records, and I don't think my record in the sudden death playoff sets is very good, but I'm happy to win 2 today.
Did the eye bother you after you were struck?
Well, no, it didn't bother me. I was a bit concerned at the moment because it kind of happened so quickly, and I wasn't really sure what to expect. I think it's the first time ever I can ever remember being hit by a ball in the face.
We're teaching all methods of communication that the deaf use. We do not have any intention of joining in some of the battles that have gone on in the past about how young deaf children should be taught the language. There's been quite a war between manualists, you know, the sign language, and people who insist that they be taught to understand oral language through speech reading and to speak orally. So we're going to train, yes, in sign language and finger spelling. We're also going to train in lip reading or speech reading. It's called both. And we're also going to train our people to be able to help in the development of oral language if the people with whom they're working have the ability to develop oral language. So all methods of communication will be very basic courses in our training program.
They play a defense similar to ours, actually what we call a split six, instead we call ours a split four. Their ends and their outside people are down on the line where we stand our linebackers back as a linebacker position, and we're actually playing a 4-4, but in the middle they have the same setup we do.
We don't really know the type of defense, TCU will play against us, and I'm sure they don't know the type of defense we'll play against them. And everything that a team does defensively actually dictates what type of offense the opponents, whether they emphasize the running game or the passing game. And I'll just say this, that both teams will be prepared to throw the football as well as run it, and I just anticipate an exciting game.
John D. Williamson is one of the richest men in Texas. He and other prominent Dallas businessmen sung Christmas carols for a supper today, for some 4,000 suppers to be exact. The Salvation Army kicked off its annual Christmas campaign to raise some $9,000 for impoverished families to have a better holiday. The Millionaire Studded Advisory Board for the Salvation Army annually turns out to signal the start of the drive. The 26 familiar red kettles of the Salvation Army open simultaneously for donations of money and toys for the underprivileged.
Contact and from communication with people because of the very nature of the handicap of not being able to hear, then every word that a deaf person learns there's also great need for people to interpret for the deaf, for the adult deaf that we have, who find it very difficult to communicate in community situations, community agencies, hospitals, law courts, police officers, with anyone who's not able to communicate with them. And there are many services that the deaf need, but they don't get simply because of the communications barrier. So we're trying to train interpreters too, as well as people who can work with small infants to train them in language development along with amplification. And also to train in media so that people will be able, so that we can develop materials for teaching the deaf.
Even a poor working girl like me can get inspired for Christmas this early with this kind of sentiment. This is Donna Witkowski for Channel 8 News on the Move.
Jesus is our Lord, come on earth to dwell. He is King forever, our Emmanuel. Let us worship Christ the Holy, sing His praises, Savior lowly. Gloria, 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 in excelsis Deo. Christ the Lord is born on this holy night. All the darkness flees, and then earth are bright. Let us join the heavenly chorus, sing His praise who came among us. Gloria, Gloria.